This is a video on how to create histograms, both frequency and relative frequency. So in the first example I'm about to do, we have a frequency table given to us. It's already pre-populated with a score range and how many times the data set has scores that occur within each of those ranges. So for example, there might be a 25 and a 27, but no other numbers between 20 and 30. There might be 65, but no other numbers between 60 and 70, because there's only one number between 60 and 70. We don't know what those numbers are, but we don't need to in order to do this. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to have one bar for each of the rows in that column. So row 1, I'm going to have a bar that stretches from 20 to 30 that is exactly too high. So I'm going to go to my graph. I'm going to have to zoom in here. From 20 to 30, each of these boxes is 1. So I'm going to go to a height of 2. And I like to put the number right on the bar. The next bar from 30 to 40 is going to have a height of 5. So again, I'm going to zoom in. This one's going to have 5. I'm going to actually do this part first. 5 here, 6 there, 4 there, and 1 there. That way I don't have to keep referencing my chart. And I'm going to graph my 5 here. This one is 6, 4, and then 1. I'm going to just kind of label this a little bit better to make it nicer. N being frequency, or the number of occurrences, and score. So there is our frequency table and the corresponding histogram that would go with it. Now, on this next example, I have a group of 30 scores. So the total number of scores is 30. And I've kind of already chosen some intervals here. There's a bunch of decimals. Not everyone likes decimals, but we don't need to worry about that, because again, we're gonna sort these by the range of values that they fall in. And if you look to the left here, I've already populated the score range, and it looks a little different. It's a compound inequality in each case, because it's really important to know, where do we put scores that fall on one of the endpoints of an interval? And notice that all the way through, each of these inequalities has an equal to sign here. So if there is a 1.5 in the data set, it belongs in this interval. If there's a 3, it belongs in this interval, and so on. So if it ends up on the right-hand endpoint, it belongs in the interval. If it ends up on the left-hand endpoint, it does not. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to just do a quick count of all of these different things. So we know that the first group would have 2. The next group is 4. Then I believe it's 8. 2, 4, 6, 8. There are 10 between 4.5 and 6. There are 5 and 1 in those last 2 groupings. Now we have a third column in this chart, and that is the relative frequency. Relative frequency is the percentage as a decimal. So we know there are 30 scores. We're going to take the frequency and we're going to divide by 30. So 2 divided by 30 is 0.06, with the 6 repeating. 4 is 0.13, with the 3 repeating. 0.26, with the 6 repeating. 0.3. And again, I've had these calculated already. All I'm doing is, for example, the 1 divided by 30, and I'm writing the decimal in the chart. Now these will end up being the heights of our bars. And now you look at those numbers and you say, oh, that's a lot more confusing than just going to a height of 10. It will end up looking very similar in terms of it wouldn't look like a different bar. The only change is going to be how do you scale the the y-axis. Now I've already scaled the x-axis, so each marking is one interval width. So the first interval goes from 0 to 1.5, then 1.5 to 3, and so on. The y-axis, I've gone by really 0.05, so 5% here, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, and 40. Because the highest percentage point I have is 0.3 repeating. So I just need to make a bar that is approximately 0.06 repeating high for the first interval. And again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the values in there. So this one should be 0.06 repeating, 0.13 repeating, and this is so I don't have to keep referencing my chart. 0.26, 0.3 repeating, 1.6 with the 6 repeating, and 0.03 repeating. So time to make my bars that specific height. So 0.6, well, this is 0.05. This is just a little bit higher than that. I'm not looking for perfect. 0.13, somewhere in here. 2.6, somewhere in there. Again, not perfect. A good estimate, though. 0.3 repeating. 1.6. Really closer to 1.7. And then 0.03. I'm actually going to have to move that because it's going to be right where it was. If this is 5, then this is probably about 0.3 repeating. And again, it's not perfect. So as I finish that up, that is what my relative frequency histogram should look like.